We're going to finish up with monopolies. In a monopoly, you have one firm that sells a unique product. The barriers to entry are extremely high. Oftentimes, the government can even block someone from entering in this industry. A lot of control over the price because they are the only supplier of this product, but it's not complete control, and we'll talk about that later. And sometimes they can advertise the firm's image, but since there's no competition, not a lot of non-price competition. 4 types of monopolies. First one is a natural monopoly, and this is one where actually it's cheaper when only one firm produces it. If you can imagine electric companies competing, so in one neighborhood you had 4 or 5 or 6 different companies who offered electricity. Imagine all the poles that would have to be put up, the wires running everywhere. It would be very, very expensive to create all these substations and the electricity just for a few homes. And so because of economies of scale, which actually means we are spreading fixed costs, and we've talked about fixed costs. You have certain costs that it doesn't matter if you produce anything or not. You have to continue to pay those. So the more units that you can produce and spread those fixed costs over, the cheaper it becomes. So you want to get the lowest average total cost that you possibly can. So it's actually cheaper once these businesses become so large that they're able to spread their costs over thousands of people. Your electric company, your phone company, cable TVs, those are all examples of natural monopolies, and they typically are very closely regulated by the government since there is no one else who can provide this, and it's actually cheaper when no one else does. Geographic monopoly, just based on the location of your store or whatever it is, gives you that monopoly power. In LaFountain, Circle K is somewhat of a geographic monopoly. If you don't want to have to drive to Marion or Wabash, you are going to go to Circle K and pay a little bit higher price for the products, and they know that. If you've ever been to a Colts game or a Pacers game or a concert, you'll know how much money you paid for your food and drinks there. It's extremely expensive because they have monopoly on all of that stuff inside the venue, and if you want to purchase it, you're going to pay that price. We don't see geographic monopolies as much or have that big of an impact anymore because people who live in remote areas now have internet, phone, mail order, can have things shipped to them. Technological monopolies is the third type, and that just means they have the exclusive technology no one else has. And typically we see this with patents and copyrights. And a patent is a 20-year exclusive right to make something. If you invent something, you've probably put a lot of time, effort, and money into that, and you would like to recoup some of that cost. That was the whole point in doing it. So patents give people an incentive because they realize that they are the only ones that are going to profit off of that invention for 20 years. Copyrights are on written work and art, and that typically lasts the lifetime of the author plus an additional 70 years. You might have gone out to eat before in a chain restaurant for your birthday, and you'll notice that they don't sing happy birthday. There's a copyright on that song, and if they are going to, these businesses, if they are going to profit off the use of that song, they have to pay royalties. So they don't use that song because they don't want to have to pay the royalties for using it. Government monopolies are just those services that are provided exclusively by the government. If you live in town, your water and sewer is provided by the government. That is funded by your taxes. And they also, obviously, roads, bridges, that sort of thing. There are 3 things that limit the pricing of a monopoly. They do have a lot of control over the price of their product, but it's not 100%. Because of the law of demand, we know that when prices go up, eventually we will see a decrease in the quantity demanded. So if they continue to raise the prices outrageously, we will decide that we no longer want those products. Also, if other people see a monopoly making very, very high profits, it would signal to them, give them an incentive to potentially go into that market. And so monopolists don't want the competition. So they keep their profits within a range that it doesn't actually encourage someone to spend all the money that it would take for them to enter into that particular market. And then third, we've talked about government regulates monopolies, and they keep an eye on that. Trusts sometimes associate and call them monopolies, but they're a little bit different. Trusts kind of act like a monopoly where you have groups of companies that actually work together to discourage competition. And in the early 1900s, we had antitrust laws created, and there are several, but the most famous is the Sherman Antitrust Act, and it did outlaw mergers and monopolies that were limiting trade. And Standard Oil and AT&T are both monopolies that were broken up using the Sherman Antitrust Act. We hear a lot of talk today about deregulation. There are a lot of companies that think the government has gotten too involved in restricting competition too much, or worked against these competition. And so what some companies would like to see is that the government actually get out of it and let the market work itself. So regulation is all the things that the government does, and the rules that they've established in business. And you've got a lot of people who are saying they've just gone too far and that we need deregulation. Need to talk just a little bit about mergers. And a merger is just when two or more companies join to form a single firm. And there are three different types of mergers. You have a vertical merger where two or more companies who make different products from the same for the same finished product. So that would be like a car company merging with a tire company. They're not the same, but the car company can use the tires on their cars, or they could merge with a shipping company to actually work to ship their product. Horizontal mergers are when two companies who offer the same exact service or good combine. And so that would be like two airlines merging, or two tire companies merging, or two automobile companies merging. And then a conglomerate merger are just companies who have merged that are completely unrelated. General Electric is an example of that. They have all kinds of different companies that are affiliated with them, that are part of their company, and they all do very, very different things. Government definitely does keep an eye when companies start to merge, and they will step in and stop a merger if they feel it will affect price and service. So we will probably never see mergers in the automobile industry because we only have 3 domestic auto companies here in the United States. The government would definitely take a look at that and step in because it would severely limit the competition in the domestic business. This is a demand and supply curve for the whole entire industry. And since there is only one firm in the industry, this is not only the demand curve for everyone in the industry, this is the demand curve for a single firm because they're the only firm in that.